Welcome back to Show Boys, the Arcane Season 2 companion series. We're here. It's episode 3. We're going to be talking about finally got it right name. What was the name of this episode, Nick?
Finally got the name right.
Finally got the name right. I made fun of you for not getting the name right in our thumbnail, and then I just didn't get the name right at the start of the podcast. So I guess
You're so rude. That's what you get.
What comes around goes around, I guess. But yeah, we're here. Venom's back with us. How you doing tonight, Venom?
Venomous.
I minimized StreamYard, and now I have no idea how to get it back up.
Well, you're still here, and we see you.
I am still here. I can hear you. I cannot see anything that is going on. So
that's probably better for you because we're not the most handsome of boys. Maybe Nick is.
I have no. If I start suddenly not being on camera, you'll have to let me know because I have.
Okay. You doing okay, Nick? I see. It's snowing in Ohio today.
It was snowing. Yeah, I woke up to a nice little coating of snow. Snowed most of the morning, but it all melted. It can't hang this time of year, especially down here in sunny southern Canton, Ohio.
Southern Northeast Ohio.
Yeah, southern Northeast Ohio. It doesn't. We are in the southwest of Northeast Ohio. Dry. It's just like
so many directions there.
But no, yeah, things are well. Yeah, it was a nice little dusting.
Nice. Kids
always like a little bit of early snow action to get in the season, get in the mood for the season, get in the what's the phrase there? Get in the I don't know.
You're doing good.
Okay.
My in-laws, my mother-in-law text a video of it snowing this morning to my wife for the girls to see because they miss snow a lot, and so
they can have all of it.
After work, we were outside doing stuff in the garage, and the girls were like sitting in each other's laps in the driveway, pretending like they were sledding. And we're like, "Wow, guys, it's like 60 degrees up here in the sunshine."
Trying to turn them against you. Walk back home from Florida.
Yeah. But yeah, I'm excited. We got a lot to talk about tonight in this episode. I'm excited to dig into some of the details and some of the lore for a particular character. But yeah, I guess we'll just start out with the usual, just overall thoughts on the episode, and then we'll dig into all the details. Nick, how are you feeling about episode 3 here?
The first time around, I was generally, as always, just enamored by the visuals and the music and all that of this show. Second time around, just like hot off the press here 10 minutes ago, not as like I can definitely tell it was the weaker of the 3 here. I think definitely not as good as last episode. I'm gonna keep the Smeech Jinx fight like up there for me. Like right now, that's like the best fight sequence of the season, in my opinion. This one had some cool action sequences, but was very just not as like crisp and like clean, in my opinion. But good episode. You can definitely tell where we have, like we talked about last episode, we're kind of like, all right, we've kind of recapped and like reset the field from last season. Yeah. You can definitely tell like we are now laying very fresh new ground for what is like to be the rest of the season here in the part 3 of Act 1.
Yeah, like your Ohio directions there. Venom, how'd you feel?
As we've discussed a little bit in the background, I was not quite as pleased with episode 3, and it sounds like I thought I'd be batting alone on that one, but it sounds like Nick might have picked up on it a little bit here on his second watch through. So I watched episode 3 total times now. It has slightly gotten better. I actually started low on the episode, and I've slowly, as I understand each of the pieces a little more, as I have, maybe snuck ahead a little bit in the other episodes, so I understand a bit more of what's going on. But sitting there watching episode 3 the first time through was a very big what the hell is going on. And we'll get into it, of course, but there's a couple of characters that I'm not overly happy with at the moment. And I think one of the biggest issues I ran into with episode 2, 3, and 4 is it almost seems like this was the point Fortiche was told, hey guys, this is the last season, and all of the artists were like, oh my god, there are so many skills I haven't shown yet. Let's do something different in every episode. Because we get some just wild animations, and in this episode we get this
The intro
animated, it's an animated comic book essentially to start it out with, and you get all these other fancy there's not much substance to them as far as like you said, it's kind of like a music video in just random visual styles, and it just seemed a little bit disconnected the first time I watched it through, and with a lot of the things that happen with the Jace storyline, how that gets all kinds of jumbled mess, and we'll get into it, but I was definitely,
at least you work your way back up off the
I'm working my way back up a little bit, but I was not at all happy with episode 3 the first time through.
So I should not watch it a third time because I will like it less, and then
You
we'll
guys
probably
are gonna-
be
you guys are
be
gonna-
right in the middle.
You guys are going to be that meme, the car passing meme. You're both like looking at each other. Well, I'll be waiting for you up there at the top, Venom, because I love this one. This episode is probably my favorite of the 3 so far.
Wow.
I just think a lot is revealed in this episode and sets up some cool potential possibilities as the rest of the season unfolds. I agree, Nick. Now that we've made it through Act 1, it feels like this is like the actual start of season 2. The first 2 episodes, though, were needed. So as much as like, I could knock episodes 1 and 2 for kind of just like catching up to like the end of season 1, we needed to see what was going on in both Piltover and the lanes and all that. So like,
I think that was part of my issue. The first time I watched episode 3 was immediately after episode 2. I watched ahead last week because my girlfriend had caught up, and that's why I've watched 4 through 6 at this point as well, because she was all ready to go. But I think that was part of my issue watching episode 3 the first time, is you get episode 1 that does exactly what you want it to do. You get episode 2 that does exactly what it needed to. It was less filling than episode 1. In my opinion, at least, there, because episode 1 you had the whole invasion again, and episode 2 was more just setting the stage for Jinx. And I almost feel like they should have just ended Act 1 there, because this episode 3 didn't really fill the role of making me excited for, in this case it would have been next week when the rest of the episodes released. It didn't really, it ended on a bit of a cliffhanger, but it didn't build the hype for me. I was left more confused and dazed as to what just happened than I was wanting the next episodes to come. So I almost feel like it should have been separate from the first 2 episodes.
That makes sense. Yeah, and thinking back on it, just a random question. Do you think so far of the 4 acts of Arcane that we've watched up to the point of recording this episode, that includes all of season 1 and then the first act here, has any act ended better than Act 1 of Season 1. That episode, episode 3, was like maybe the best episode, I think, maybe of the series, potentially. Do you think Act 2 or 3 of Season 1, or so far Act 1 of Season 2, competes with the ending of Season 1, Act 1?
Not yet.
Not yet? Okay.
Yeah, I don't think this. I mean, definitely as like an act ender, and maybe this kind of echoes maybe a little bit of what Venom is saying. Is like
Echoes? I see what you're doing.
yeah,
man.
this doesn't feel like the end of an act like the other 3 acts had, where obviously one was a finale, one was Act 1 of Season 1 was, like you said,
Basically a finale.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this one, I think, is definitely the weakest finale of the 4 acts so far, because it does feel disconnected from the other 2 episodes in this act, and it really feels like the first episode of this season, really, where it's all brand like all this is really net new information, where everything else was kind of like tying up some loose ends from last season. So it definitely isn't in the running for.
Yeah. So do we want to we'll just do our recap and reacting to each little chunk of the episode like we normally do. I'm just very excited for a few particular things. So first up, we get a slightly deeper look at what's on the what's Caitlyn's last name?
Kiraman.
The Kiraman key that she was given in what was that, episode 1, I guess. And we learned that like her mom developed this ventilation tool, or was it a ventilation tool or a gas to like clean the air of the lane so the people could actually breathe down there.
So the lanes were affected by this gas called the gray, which was a toxic byproduct of the factories and industry of Piltover that seemingly was being pumped underground away from the factories, and that's what has turned Zon into this kind of toxic waste dump, essentially. And the solution that I don't know if it's necessarily Caitlyn's mom or if it's just her mom narrating everything, but the Kiramans as a whole, that line of women were very obviously very important women for some reason, and this is kind of showing that they developed this ventilation system to remove the gases from Zon and improve the quality of life.
Yeah. And we see Caitlyn in her potentially unhinged vengeance adventure she's going on here. Basically turn what her mother was part of creating, or at least told us about, to help the Zonites against them, basically, into like chemical warfare. And uses the gray as we saw earlier in episodes, maybe 1, definitely 2, in their little trek through the lanes looking for Jinx, deploying the gas. They have their like ventilator masks so they can walk through it unaffected and stuff. How are you feeling about Caitlyn's current trajectory, Nick, on this like path of vengeance?
I mean, I think it's all she's never a very righteous character in my mind. Like, she's always just kind of been on a trajectory of like I know they built her up in the first season to be like the good cop, but I kind of just feel like it's just natural for her character to be just kind of unhingingly going after Jinx at this point. Like, there really wasn't a ton, in my opinion, like a ton of moral ground she had to stand on. Like, she was just kind of wanting to be a good cop because it's just really what she wanted to do. Like it was, she didn't have a huge moral basis or anything tragic happened to her that made her that way. She's just like, I want to be a good cop and do fun things. So the first bad thing that happens is clearly going to put her down like a very bad path. And obviously being from a position of power from like a wealthy family, she's a bit entitled, all that stuff. Like she just doesn't have a lot of characteristics of like, your moral foundation is hyper strong other than you're told to be a good girl your whole life. But I thought it was interesting how Vi in that, before she confronts Jinx there, like is bought into that lie quite a bit when she's telling Jinx that, they use it to clear the streets to protect civilians. Like, come on, like you're gassing like the entire neighborhood. You're just going to be like, oh yeah, it's just to clear the streets and to protect people. It's like, it doesn't work like that, So I was just like, that's just a blatant, like, you're lying to yourself there, Vi. Don't do it. Caitlin's off her rocker.
Yeah. I think for me, like the biggest thing about Caitlin is like she was basically nothing. Like she's just so timid and passive about everything, and then all of a sudden she's like, I am going to gas the lanes, like I don't care, we're just gonna like go down there, it doesn't matter who gets in our way, like they either move or I'm gonna blow their heads off with my crazy new Hextech 3 scoped sniper rifle. So for me it's kind of a little jarring, not that I have like a huge issue with where her character is. I think my issue is like where it came from.
There's just nothing to keep her good, like she doesn't have, like you said, she's kind of like just timid and like empty, like blank. That's how she started off. And like, just to me, like, what was the thing that was keeping her moral? Nothing really, other than like her mom being around, maybe, because
she was her mom didn't want her to be a cop or anything like that.
Right.
She wanted her to follow in her footsteps and be a dignitary or whatever, and take up the mantle that her mom then gives her in the key. But
she's ain't built for the streets,
she was very naive but like Mike was saying, Caitlin I have a major issue with. I know we were having troubles with Jace in was it episode 2 where or episode 1 where he's trying to save Victor and Victor emerges and everything. We were having issues with all of that, but
every other episode I like him and I don't like him. So this was an episode where I was like, I like
this
you.
This was a good one.
This is a good
one. Well, just wait, you'll not like him later. But
I know. Episode 4, he's gonna suck really bad. I just know it. Like I don't have
So Caitlin, I have a really hard time with. It is incredibly jarring, and it just feels kind of rushed and sloppy with her character arc. And I think that's the biggest problem I have with episode 3 as a whole, was where they've taken Caitlin from where she was and not really feeling like the pieces were put together properly in the middle. Because up until this point, especially with the main characters, which Caitlin wasn't really a main character in season 1, and now obviously she is a very large character, but they did such an excellent job, at least looking back, I feel like they did an excellent job of kind of piecing the characters together and showing how they were progressing and everything. And with Caitlin, it just feels like, hey, she's evil now, and that's kind of where we're at. And you get the whole scene later on, of course, with Kate and Vi in the tunnels where they send everyone else away, and Vi begs Kate to not change, and Kate promises, okay, yeah, I won't change, and then 3 seconds later she goes back to trying to murder people, and it's just it doesn't make any sense to me.
I mean, that wasn't a convincing delivery from her in that scene. Like, I was just like, dude, like, this chick will just say anything.
Right. Yeah, but it's still, it's still just,
And
Yeah.
Beth's gonna wield her like the little screwdriver she is. Like,
Yeah. And like I'm okay with her being how she is now. Like I can see the turn. It's just like where this came from is
Right.
what the issue is for me. It's like the reasons are like believable, right? I mean,
Right.
the Jinx is responsible for her mother's death, and then like she even at that point was like not as crazy as she is now, and then the Chem Baron attack at the memorial like sends her over the top. I get that, but it's just like where the heck was it? And there was no hint of this type of personality to Kate at all prior to these events, which I think is the hang up, but whatever. I can believe where she is now though.
We got that with Jinx. I mean, in season 1, the evil faces are there from the very beginning. That hint of what Powder is to become in Jinx is there from the very beginning. They did an excellent job setting up what would become Jinx.
Yeah.
I mean, empty shell of a like a royal member, right? I mean, the writing's kind of on the wall there. Like she's just prime real estate to be used.
Right.
So like, yeah, I kind of get it. Like I'm just not surprised, especially when how this episode ended. I'm like, yeah, it's very sudden and jarring. Like, okay, she's in charge now. I guess that's fun. But it's like I get it because the second time through, that scene made a little bit more sense because there are subtle like where some of the other families, like there's at least 2 other families that gave like little like nods. They're like, yeah, that makes sense. So I'm like, okay, there's some people on board here because there's other. The first time I only saw the families that were like, what the hell is going on? I'm like, why is everyone just standing here?
Right.
No one's gonna object to the person who has no authority here making the big speech about what kind of authority. Obviously, man, the wheelchair is behind him. I get it, but I'm like, you guys have really fallen far from your council of 9 or whatever, all but 2 episodes ago.
Right. Well, and you even see I think it's Shula is the other counselor.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
She looks at Salo disapprovingly, like she does not sign off on this at all. So I'm not sure how we're just suddenly Kate is now general of the world because Salo said that Mbessa was going to make Salo the leader, but Salo didn't get to be the leader, so now Kate is, and it's so I don't understand how suddenly Kate becomes a leader when none of those houses really looked like they were bought into this. The only people that were the police and the military, which I guess that's all you really need. But,
I mean, maybe it just speaks to the fact that they are, they just were not equipped to function without like a peaceful council, and then Heimendinger like always there being like, whoa, guys, let's just think about this, because like every council meeting that we've ever had has been Heimerdinger like reeling it in everyone, like everyone pump the brakes. And he's off, he's doing cool stuff. He's
hanging
fun.
out with Echo,
He's saying like cool one-liners all the time, like ball sockets and stuff. Like
and giving us
inconceivable
first law or whatever. Every action a reaction.
Yeah. Okay. So you brought up Mbessa, and that kind of takes us to the next section of the episode where she's meeting with the guild trader, right? Amara is her name, by the way. But she's not a guild trader. She is a member of the Black Rose. So immediately, I see this, see the thorns, see the rose, and I'm like, bro, is freaking LeBlanc gonna be in this show? I did not even like think of that possibility. And this is one thing that I'm very excited about. Now, Venom, I know that you've watched ahead, so do your best to keep a poker face and not reveal anything about my wild speculation. But when you first saw this and you saw the Black Rose stuff, like what went through your mind? Did LeBlanc pop up to you, or?
So yeah, so I didn't necessarily know anything about the Black Rose prior to watching it the first time, but I definitely dug a little bit afterwards to see who is this obviously powerful mage association of some sort. And she Amara mentions a feud with Ambessa, and it sounds like there's more to the story of why Mel's brother died. And I was curious, okay, who is this Black Rose Association? And yeah, I did not necessarily see a connection to LeBlanc happening prior to the involvement of Amara and Ambessa's meeting.
Yeah, so I'm trying to remember exactly. LeBlanc was not a character that I played ever. I've never played LeBlanc.
She's
been killed by her a million times, but never played her. But she is the leader or very high up in the Black Rose cult. And the tie to Noxus and what, which would be, loosely to Ambessa, is she has been like an advisor to many generals and like high ups in the Noxian ranks in terms of leaders and stuff. So there's kind of the tie-in to LeBlanc. Ambessa seems to be somewhat respected military leader of Noxus. To what extent, we don't know yet. But yeah, maybe that's like, maybe she made a deal with the Pale Lady, which is what, LeBlanc goes by in her lore stories and stuff. Something like that. And maybe that's what happened to Mel's brother or Ambessa's son. Maybe LeBlanc's not involved at all, and it was just a cool, like, lore tie-in to get people like me excited, because they mentioned a cult that a champion is part of. But I mean, it seems too on the nose of LeBlanc to not be in this with all the background ties to Noxus and stuff like that. So that's something to keep your eye on if you're watching this week to week and haven't already seen the entire season by the time you're watching this podcast episode. Yeah, immediately got super excited. What was going through your mind when you saw all this like weird like red thorns magic stuff, Nick?
It was cool. I mean, that's one of the great things about this show is like I can't watch it and it's just like an empty mind because I know nothing else besides the show. So I'm just like, ooh, pretty cool stuff. But obviously,
like, it's like you and I switch places for like Star Wars stuff.
Yeah, 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 and like also like I it's hard for me to come up with theories because I have no context of anything.
Right,
so,
right,
like,
right.
It's all just very cool looking. But I did understand, especially that I was like, oh, ooh, this is magic, and Piltover is no bueno, because that's a big no-no around there. That's their whole point. It's no magic. So that was interesting. Obviously, I like the whole switch of the not fight, but like they got the upper hand there, and then like the guard dude had like a cool like anti Black Rose Mamba magic sword that just like lit it up. Like I don't know what that was, but that was cool. I was like, oh, that's handy. I'm like, clearly these two entities are familiar with each other because they know how to fight whatever this is, and now they have some back and forth. So definitely thought it was cool. Again, like, very early, I was like, ooh, net new stuff. I'm like, okay, here we go.
Yeah, so I don't remember exactly what the stone is called. Maybe you do, Venom. But Galio, a champion from Demacia, which is very anti-mage, anti-magic. He's made of this stone. He's basically like a stone golem that's like that sucks up, absorbs like all the magic. It's like anti-magic stuff. So I don't know if maybe they had some of that in that axe or staff or whatever her
Yeah, so
little bodyguard was.
he's got those little green runes all the way down the
Yeah.
side of the
Blade,
sphere. They kind of glow a little bit when he goes to break free of the grasp or whatever.
Yeah. Another thing about LeBlanc before we move on is she can create clones of herself, and like in the lore, not necessarily in game. In game, she just makes like a copy of herself, but in the lore, she can like basically clone herself into somebody else, like and take their identity. So
is
I
that
mean,
that's what happened to the second person that got froze up, Mel's assistant. She was
maybe.
not part. I was thinking she was not. So I was like, okay, they were like, this is gonna be a problem. The first chick that died. She's like, oh, this is gonna be a problem. Like, okay, yeah, because that's a legit person. Now was just part of the cult and like in it secretly. But then the second person I really took on is like she got like annexed by whatever.
Yeah, I saw it that same way where what's her name?
It's a good question.
Mel's assistant number one.
Mel's assistant number one, yes. Mel's assistant number one. I very much Alora. I very much, watching that the first time, took it as she was basically being possessed or corrupted from an outside source of the Black Rose. Because when Amara comes in, she is actually a mage herself, and she has the Black Rose on her hand that kind of comes out of nowhere, but she is actually seen doing magic herself, where Alora almost gets basically consumed by the Black Rose magic. So
with that being said, LeBlanc can like disguise herself as someone else. So I don't know if that's what happened with Alora. What you guys are saying is what I also perceived as like she was being controlled, which is a little bit different than what I'm talking about. But what I'm saying, any Black Rose affiliate, we'll just call them, that we see from here on out, could possibly be LeBlanc, cloning, disguising herself, replicating herself as someone else. So something to keep your eye on. But yeah, so Amara does say that Ambessa, has a debt to repay. So she made some kind of deal with Black Rose, and maybe her son was a partial payment because she still owes. And we see in the scene with Mel and Alora that Mel has been like transported somewhere. She has been captured. One other thing about Ambessa, we have that scene with what's the half councilman's name in the wheelchair? Salo getting like drawn on by the shimmer pen.
The Jeet in
yeah. So I was trying to think of what those creatures are called, right? Last week.
Jeet.
So there's like a species of like humanoid animal creatures in the League of Legends universe. They're called Vastaya. So we have a lot of Vastaya, which is really cool. But this one particular one, she's like bedazzling the dude, getting him all hopped up on the shimmer. And Ambessa comes in. They have their little, political intrigue conversation of like calling this meeting where he's under the impression he's about to be appointed the leader of Piltover. And this Vastaya is, basically spying for Mel. So Mel is kind of up to, in some regards, what Ambessa's kind of trying to unravel here.
She showed up. She was like, "Oh, this ain't good."
Yeah, so she's got her ear to the floor, like really trying to scope out what's going on here.
Over in Noxus, they've like taken away her like assets and like stuff. Like she's kind of like in bad news with Noxus. It sounded like.
Well, yeah. So with the whole thing, Amara mentions a feud and a debt, and that the Black Rose knows what Ambessa is after in Piltover, in Zaun. Ambessa is there to get control of something, presumably a weapon, whether it be Hex Tech or Shimmer, or because you could see Noxus could want super soldiers. They could be after Shimmer. They could be after the Hex Tech technology to be able to create massive weapons. But Ambessa is after it herself to possibly fight against this feud and fight back after whatever happened to her son. So it appears that she has no intention of repaying whatever debt there needs to be settled.
Yeah, she's about to repay with some fisticuffs. Let's not. Do you want to knock out the Jace and the wild runes and like
that was good this
real trippy Loki like bending of reality, or do you want to knock out the Vi Jinx Kate fight?
Save that for the end.
Okay.
Because really we get into the whole like Jace Echo situation, and on the second watch through, I totally picked up. I was like, we got no closure to that at all. Like they wrapped like we got Vi and Caitlyn like departing. We got Caitlyn becoming in charge. We got a lot of stuff there at the end, but I was like, we totally just left those three in the frickin'.
They got eaten by some giant.
We left them in the wild rune nexus.
Some giant psychedelic berry thing.
Yeah, I was like, they're really not gonna. Yeah, they just left that one on the table down there. It was so weird. You forgot that it even existed. Like,
yeah. All right, so let's go there, Nick. Why don't you set this section up?
Yeah, so we still got Heimendinger, Jason Echo just like in the lab, like kind of just like pondering like what's going on. And like Jace has like some legitimate, like he's just being like, yeah, we theorize there's like wild ones. And I like this conversation because it just sounds cool. The way they're talking about this hex tech stuff, because they're constantly trying to figure out its nature. But they're like, yeah, we kind of theorize there'd be like wild versions of it, where obviously we have controlled, where we say explicit things and explicit tech to do explicit things. But the idea of like there's more raw like energy about it elsewhere, where it would happen kind of organically. And I like how Echo is like smart here, and like not that he's not smart before, but we kind of see like a very intelligent side of Echo, where he's like he gets it because he's around this tree and he kind of knows it from a different perspective than like Jason his lab.
Yeah.
So I thought that was cool how they went about that. Meanwhile, Heimendinger is just like. Dude's just like fiddling around, like flying,
dropping wrenches, like
he's just being funny, and like he's just having a good old time for someone who lives forever or like much longer than these idiots.
Yeah.
So I just appreciate that scene. It's good fun. But I like how Jace is just much better this episode. Like he's a little bit more humble or like in tune with like his setting, right? Like he just really feels like he is like actually talking to like Echo and like Heimendinger, and just being a little bit more like open to like things versus just like big dumb Jace like doing big dorky Jace things. So he was much cooler this episode, and we get the cool shots of him in his white cloak down below by the Nexus with his hammer. I'm like, oh yeah, like I was like, I'd play that character. Like he looks cool right now. But then I think about episode 2 and I'm like, but I wouldn't. So very torn. But ultimately, they go ahead.
I can't hold it back anymore. You are like perfectly aligned with Vi's body to where it looks like I can't unsee it, dude. I can't unsee it.
I didn't even notice that.
There it is, right there. About to punch down.
But yeah,
they have this revelation because they're like, well, why would it have a natural organic reaction? Like completely so far down. Oh, duh. We built like the
Yeah.
energy core for the Hex tech way underground. So they
Yeah,
take a
because
little,
the tree, right, in Echo's hood,
right.
it's underground in the lane. So they're like, how could this be affecting it? And yeah.
So I actually think we were supposed to get more information and it got cut, assuming time, because when they cut from the scene you just described to down below, we start out with Jace asking Echo where he learned so much about the Hextech stuff.
Yeah.
And we have no inclination before that Echo knows anything about the
Hex. Yeah.
about all of that as Jace is opening the gate to enter in here. And Echo is like, oh, I didn't think you guys would trust anything this far down if it was important. And there's no mention of Echo knowing this is there or what any of this is.
There was that line where he was just like, you know, I studied what I could and like pieced together what I can from things. I'm like,
what happened before that? What are we talking about? There was no discussion prior to this that the viewers were privy to that would give this context. So I feel like we actually were supposed to get more discussion, and it ended up being cut out for some reason.
I just took that as like, obviously they're having that conversation in the room, right?
Right.
So I took it as like he's there and he's like, oh wow, I didn't think you'd put something like this like down below the lanes. Like nothing important is in the lanes. But yeah, it's like you can see Echo's character from season 1. Like he's just always lurking and like listening, right? So yeah, I didn't even spend much time getting hung up on any of this in this part of the episode, because I was like, yeah, I could see that, because Echo is he's just always around and like listening to what's going on. And we saw that when he was a little kid. But yeah, they essentially, Jace is like,
after that, nothing happens, but everything happens. A lot of stuff happens, but nothing happens. Especially on the second watch through, I'm like, okay, literally, that was the end of the conversation, and the rest of it is just like ball tripping, like
because so they're chatting a little bit, and we find out that they put the core that far below ground. Jace's like, well, in case anything happens, it becomes unstable and explodes, like it's buried, won't do too much damage except for to the lanes.
They're far from the lanes, though.
We find out that the reason that the tree is being affected is the air and like drainage goes right into like the water supply and air supply of the lanes. So that's why the Echo's tree is being affected. And while they're kind of like having this conversation, like Heimer notices a little section of goop on the floor, and it has like similar qualities to the Victor goop core box. And then we just get like they ate all the schnozberries, like Loki reality bending sequence, which was very wild and trippy and kind of cool.
The thing I appreciate most, though, that is forever going to like stick with me, and it affects all like fantasy IPs, like everything that deals with like magic, is when Heimerdinger's like, I always thought it was like humans' fault why like they always go crazy with magic, but he's like, maybe it is just a property of magic, like it's just a requirement, like it just happens by the use of it, like that these counter negative effects, right? Yeah, so it's like, wow, he just like gave a scientific kind of explanation as to why like humans are kind of off the hook for being intrinsically like evil or anything. Like, yeah, it's just the magic, it's not us. Because it's always been like all the other species are like, yeah, humans suck, man. They just.
Oh my gosh! Sorry.
Yeah. So my theory through what, because Heimer did give us for every action there's a reaction, and then we also get this little discussion here before the Wild Rune eats them, basically, of what you just said with Heimer. So my theory on Wild Runes is these aren't actually. This is more almost like the arcane that Jace is controlling is magic, and the wild runes that they're describing is almost like an anti-magic. So for every time you use magic itself, the anti-magic has to have some kind of a reaction of equal magnitude or something like that. So it has to balance each other out, and that's kind of how I'm framing the and that's why you go from the rune or the crystals that Jace is using. He's refined into these nice perfect balls, and then the wild runes are these prickly, just torn up, gooey balls with spikes all over them, and there's holes missing out of all the different, almost like DNA strands and stuff. So that's kind of how I'm picturing the discussion between runes and wild runes. Is I'm picturing it as kind of a yin yang, magic anti-magic sort of thing.
It's very kind of like mage versus like a druid. Like to me, it looks very. It also is like more brown and organic looking, obviously. So it does seem a little bit more like a druid type magic, where druids are more kind of out there in nature, finding like these organic instances of magic, whereas like mages kind of like work out in their towers and like harness runes and like words and things like that. So it's kind of the dichotomy there between types of magic, I suppose.
Yeah.
I don't know if we have druids in Runeterra. Damn, no druids in Runeterra?
Maybe.
Dang,
possibly.
Like 600 characters and there's no druids?
Probably. It's been a minute.
Ivern? What is Ivern? I don't really know.
He's just like a treant. One of the many trees.
Magic eats, but he's a friend of. He'd probably be the closest, but I don't know that he.
Would Lilia be a druid technically? Maybe
she sounds like she makes flowers.
Or Nidalee might, I suppose, because she can transform. She can transform back and forth between human and beast.
Oh yeah, close.
Yeah. Or Zyra. What is Zyra?
Zaya?
Zyra, the rose thorn lady.
Oh yes, yeah, she could be.
With her evil plants.
Yeah, dude, toxic.
But as a good transition though, where we kind of like the summation of like that whole thing with them is like we get these. It's blended in with the fight with Jinx and Vi.
Yeah, because it's shutting down the hex technology, right? Which I think kind of like lends a little credence to your theory, Venom, because as like things are glitching out in the rune crazy like sequence, like Vi's gauntlets are malfunctioning, Caitlyn's rifle is malfunctioning, Savika's new arm, like everything that has any sort of hex tech involvement is like not functioning anymore.
Savika's new arm does not actually have hex tech, but it's mechanical, and when she touches Kate's gun, the shock comes through and hits her arm. Yep. So that's what actually ends up subduing Savika.
Jinx's gun does have hex tech, right? The fish
rocket.
Yeah.
The machine gun does not. The rocket does. Yes.
Yeah. So that was really cool seeing all that stuff kind of like phase in and out as they're like taking that radical journey through the rune world. But the confrontation of Vi, Caitlyn, Jinx, and Savika. We kind of see before this starts Vi's basically like, all right, Kate, if you have the shot, like just take it. And we get
She got
some
punked, man.
Yeah, some Jinx
Again.
tomfoolery with some illusions and things like that. But we just get like another epic fight scene with so many cool colors. Like I love the color use of the show. It's amazing.
There's
That's
a
it.
mention of another champion.
Yes, Janna.
Mhm.
I liked the little story there with Jinx about Janna. It's cool that like it's not somebody we'll ever see, but she did have the cool like mural thing on the back wall there. Yeah, but it's cool to hear about Janna and them actually say her name too. Yeah, what'd you guys think of the confrontation between Vi and Jinx and technically Kate and all that?
I could not believe. See, this is the thing. Like Caitlyn she's just an empty shell of dumbness. Like, of course, that's not actually Jinx, but like she takes the shot. Like I did it. Like, go away, girl. Like, you ain't that. Like, you're not. No, it's not that easy. Like, that's the other thing too. Like, she thinks it's gonna be that easy the whole time. Like, she's
But with
just
Jinx,
so naive.
it could be with Jinx though,
No,
because
it
she's so crazy.
Jinx
That's the
literally,
thing.
she literally stands there and says, "I just can't seem to die," and coaxes the shot in. It's like, no,
Yeah.
that's not her, guys. Oh
It's
man,
just like through this whole thing, like Kate, her whole like revenge like sequence,
The revenge tour.
yeah, like she's just increasingly naive about everything. Like she learns nothing. That's the other thing about her. She learns absolutely nothing, at all. Even when Vi's standing there telling her like, Jinx is gonna be ready. We should tell the others to not come with us because she's really gonna be ready for us. We're clearly walking into a trap. So I don't think Jinx is gonna stand there in the room and be like, "Shoot me!" Like, come on.
Yeah.
I was not buying that at all. Like, I'm like, Caitlyn, you suck so bad.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, you got to agree with me about the color usage, though.
Oh no, yeah, it looks great.
It is so cool.
And I like how we finally get Jinx like full on, like you were saying last episode, Venom, where she's got a little bit of the shimmer in her, where her eyes are just like bleeding that stuff. And, like the first time she actually steps out, like she's like activated whatever she can do.
It took a little bit, but I just thought of it after watching it the second time. That is, I assume, Jinx's get excited from the game.
Yeah, her passive ability there.
Yep, her passive ability,
which is really cool.
So that
you kind of see that with Vi in this fight scene too. One of her abilities is she gets like an attack speed boost and like her gauntlets like steam out a little bit.
Yeah,
so you kind of saw that in there too. But yeah, those little things, like I love that about these fight sequences for players of the game. But yeah, through this conversation between Jinx and Vi, they get into like Kate shoots off one of Jinx's fingers. They end up like Vi on top of Jinx, like getting ready to punch her out. And did we ever figure out the name of the little kid? Like
Isha.
Jinx's little Isha.
Isha.
She comes in, steps between Vi and Jinx, has Jinx's little handgun pointed at Vi. Kate shoots it out of her hand. And then Vi's like, wait, don't take the shot. Even though you're like an expert marksman with like 3 scopes on your rifle and you could definitely hit Jinx without hitting this kid. You can't take the shot.
I object to that though too, because they've literally just gone through a 10-minute fight scene where all of their hex tech technology is freaking out.
That's true. That's true.
So why would you think you'd be able to take that shot without your gun suddenly acting up?
I think it's fair, but it definitely felt though like a Vi cop out to not kill
Yeah.
his sister too.
Right.
Like,
Right. I understand why.
but no, not that she's wrong, but not that she's wrong,
Right.
because probably in no circumstance you should probably attempt to take that shot.
Right.
Or
Yeah.
like Vi, you could just grab the kid and move because you're on top and the kid no longer has a gun pointed at your face.
Yeah.
Right.
It's just like, we don't know what to do. There's a little kid involved. And like even Jinx, I was like, is Jinx like pinned down by the feet? Because like she's just also laying there, like taking it in. I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't know. Like we're all just gonna chill here for a moment while Caitlyn like wigs out.
Yeah. Jinx.
Now she can be an assassin. She can get the hidden blade. She's missing the finger.
Oh, she's gonna join the Creed.
Yeah.
Yeah, she doesn't strike me as an assassin type. She's not very stealthy and low key.
Jinx at all. No, I've played a lot of regular. I've even played some AP Jinx on ARAM. I have not played assassin Jinx.
I mean, kind of in episode 2 when the kid falls on her and like the thugs like. She like her hood comes off and he's like, "Oh shit, it's Jinx." Like,
right.
I enjoy that because he was spooked. He was like, "Oh man."
Right.
Yeah. So we did forget to mention that on their journey into Jinx's little cave, that maybe it's the amount of Godzilla that I've watched this year, but like when they went in there, all I could think of is like the underwater, Godzilla charging port in like King of the Monsters or whatever. I don't know why. Maybe I literally have no idea, but that's all I could think of. But on their way in, we saw like a barrel.
Yeah, the barrel
next to the ventilation fan or whatever, and they like while Vi and Kate are doing Vi and Kate things. Was it Savika or the kid?
Savika
like, pulls the lever.
Blew open the mural, which is like the seal.
Yeah, which is hilarious because Jana, who is on the mural, like her big thing is she like summons wind tornadoes that like blow through. So I thought that was
she's actually a incarnation of a year or something like that. She's actually basically a goddess of wind, more or less. So yeah, for her to be the seal holding back.
Yeah, this is a nice little touch. So that the wind blows and essentially sets off a massive cascading explosion of the gray gas right up into Piltover. But it's not gray. It's actually a ton of colors, which I loved, of course. And I thought it was kind of funny too, like
I like the mechanism.
Some of the kids like watching the explosions from afar are actually like, "Oh wow, that actually looks cool."
Well, they were on the other side of a bridge. They were
Oh, that's true.
Yeah.
That's true. But it almost kind of could have looked like a firework type celebration thing because of all the colors.
So it's just a one-time gassing of Piltover and like some paint. I like how the paint like the wind catches the paint and it like pumps it out of the barrel and like
right.
That was cool, little touch. But like, is it just a one-time gassing? Because it's not like it continuously was gassing.
Yeah, it looked like it released somehow. All of this gray has been sucked up by the ventilation system and contained, and it's just kind of chilling in this big chain-sealed chamber or something. And
that
so
explains Vander's story. Like they were basically all dying, and then they were saved by the wind goddess.
Right. Yep. Yeah. So all this gray has been sealed, and they break the seal. So now all of it comes rushing out, and then there's not any left after that. So once all of that has and also it blows out, but the passageway that Vi and Kate end up getting blown out of the room, while Jinx and the others manage to hold on to that whatever almost
Altar
casket
thing.
looking thing in the middle of the room. I'm not sure who was supposed to be buried there or what, but the room actually gets blocked off by a bunch of rocks and everything, and the two groups get separated. So all the wind then gets stopped. It can't go out anymore because that wall gets blocked off.
Yeah. Man. So what sucked up all the gray into that storage thing was what Caitlin's mother revealed on the Kierman key, which is super cool.
Right.
Yeah. So we have this new attack on Piltover. I also thought like visually is cool as Mel's like looking out the window and like the window has like color on it, like little spots of color from the gas and stuff. It was really cool. But yeah, essentially another attack on Piltover, and then we get to the end with Kate and Mbessa at the like special gathering that was called, and Mbessa appoints Kate as the new leader of Piltover, right?
Temporary general with emergency powers.
Yeah. They declare martial law, name her general, and she basically becomes supreme commander of the city.
That always goes well.
Yeah, always, definitely. And she gets a cool cloak now,
especially when it's enticed on by a foreigner with no authority. That is from a warlike nation.
Mbessa just doing her best like United States government impression.
Yeah.
Yep.
Toppling the government of another region and appointing a new leader. Yeah, not that. Anyways, I digress. Yeah, and we get a montage of Mbessa being the one pulling the strings behind all the stuff that's been happening.
So she paid like Tube Face Lady to like attack, but then also kill her all in the same deal.
In episode 1, I believe, the black envelope with the seal on it is the invitation to the memorial. That so when the Mbessa's right-hand man comes to the tube lady, and he hands her an invitation, because you have to present your invitation to get out, because when she shows up, she's got the big veil on.
She was walking around.
She hands the invitation. And that's how she gets in, is with that invitation.
Yeah, I didn't see the Mbessa thing coming. Did you guys see her being the one orchestrating all this stuff, or did that catch you guys by surprise too?
It caught me off guard. They did foreshadow it in episode 1. They mention one of the counselors asks, how did they get so many people in here? And I believe Mel said they must have had inside help. So they kind of foreshadowed it. So it was on my radar that, okay, is there another player involved here that we don't know about? Well, it turns out it was just Mbessa leading the war efforts on kind of playing both sides against each other.
Yeah. I have a bit of a Medarda deep dive that we can go into here. Before we do that, anything outside, that we didn't touch from the episode itself, besides like the singed post pre-credit scene thing?
So of course, after Vi and Kate get separated, you get the Kate very disappointed in Vi for stopping her from trying to murder
her with her gun
and or random child, and Kate hits her in the gut with the butt of her gun and abandons Vi. And obviously we now have another tear between those two that will have to be resolved.
No, don't resolve it.
Right, and also with Jace Victor or Jace Heimerdinger and Echo have been eaten by the wild rune. You see, right before it happens, Jace actually takes his hammer and goes to smash the wild rune, and then the wild rune collapses and they're gone. So we don't really know. So we're missing all of the scientists. Kate
All
and
the
Vi,
smart people have left
Kate and
the show.
Kate and Vi are going separate ways. The one Brahm impersonator.
Yes. Oh, I think I found his name somewhere.
Did we find his name? I have no idea what his name is yet.
He was big sad.
I'm gonna have to look for it again because
He's present later on. I still don't know what his name is.
You know what? You know where it is?
The Caitlyn thing, right?
It's a shameless plug here. Go to showboysmedia.com and check out our Arcane episode 1 blog post.
Ooh.
Let me do a little scroll. Loris is his name.
Loris, gotcha.
Not
He's
Graves
one that walked
or
away
Braum.
from the Caitlyn ceremony.
Yep. As soon as Ambessa announces Caitlyn, he's kind of like, no, this is wrong, and he turns away and abandons because he became an enforcer. He turns away and abandons it while the rest of the enforcers all embrace Caitlyn as the leader.
I kind of took him as like a vet because he was like drunk on the street.
Right. Yeah.
And he's like, I'm gonna join up with on this crusade one last time. He's like, oh, not again.
Yeah. Things start going really wrong, and he's just like, I can't get behind this. No, we're
been here, done that.
Yeah, been down this road before.
Another nod to. Never mind. American government.
Yeah.
Plot twist. He could
old.
be the enforcer that killed Vi and Jinx's parents. That would be kind of crazy.
That would be wild. Yeah, all very valid points. So we do have another rift between Vi and Caitlyn to end the episode. Jinx is still out there with Savika. And no Victor this episode, so we still don't know what Victor's doing post Lane miracle working.
Right.
We'll see if that picks up in episode 4. But so I was going through Necrit, great YouTuber, does a ton of League of Legends content and particularly focuses on lore stuff. Like his lore breakdowns, amazing. They're so good. I can listen to him forever. I was trying to do some research on LeBlanc to see how she could potentially be connected. And after watching a video or two, I saw he did a lore analysis breakdown of the Ambessa like cinematic reveal for League of Legends as a playable character, and then like teasing an associated skin line. And this video, it's linked in the episode description, so you can go watch it yourself. But holy crap, I learned so much stuff about the Medardas, Ambessa in particular. But yeah, if what we learn from this cinematic trailer is true, like we could maybe expect to see some things in the rest of season 2. And the biggest thing I learned that makes a ton of sense, and now I can't unsee it, is the Medardas are actually from Shurima. They're not Noxian by birth. They maybe went to Noxus for some reason or another. But in the trailer, Ambessa is like in a desert place, and even Mel in the show in Arcane, she has like blue and gold, like she is decked out in gold, and she has like blue in her hair and stuff. And Noxus is not known for gold. Like their color scheme is not gold at all. Their color scheme is black or red or gray, like obsidian. They're just dark, muted, aggressive colors. The only two regions in League's lore that are heavily associated with gold are Shurima and Targon, and those two places are kind of connected to each other. But so follow me here. I'm trying my best to summarize this and make it all make sense. But if the Medardas are from Shurima, and specifically a place called Sakal, this ties them to Zareth. If you've played League of Legends, you'll know Zareth, the artillery mage, just pure energy, crazy sociopath, like magic user.
Pure arcane energy.
Pure arcane energy. The name of the show is Arcane. Follow me, okay, guys? So Zareth has a band of crazy, like cult-like followers, right? To get into Zareth's backstory would be too much. Basically, was a mage, got like imprisoned, consumed by arcane energy, imprisoned in like a crazy magical sarcophagus by, had a big duel with Renekton, things like this.
Any backstory in Renekton now? Go.
Renekton, alligator or crocodile
thanks.
general, like
Dope.
awesome war
Rad.
like fighter, dude. But there's ties to Renekton too, to Mbessa. Renekton's weapons in League of Legends are like these curved blades that are huge. What does Mbessa have? Curved blades. Just saying. But Zareth's followers are in Sakal, Shurima, and Zareth is blue. His followers, due to their close proximity and use of arcane and magic, their skin turns blue or very pale in all of the lore stories. Mel has blue accents on her outfit, the gold from Shurima. Dude, what if Zareth shows up in the last 2/3 of the season and his magical energy source is somehow the source of the arcane hextech rune stuff? I don't know. Just floating this out there. I don't have any, much more to go off of other than like they're from Shurima, and that has to mean something.
So like Mbessa's trying to awaken him from his sarcophagus.
I don't know. Like I said, I don't know how to tie them together other than they're from Shurima, transplant into Noxus. We have the Black Rose cult and LeBlanc involved somehow. And I'm just saying, Zareth is made of pure arcane energy. The show is named Arcane. There's like, if it was
that leads
just
to the next series.
If it was just hex tech and runes, why would they call it Arcane? Why would they call it something else? It's very specific. I don't know. What do you think, Venom? You're slowly nodding your head. Are the wheels turning? Are you jumping on the train?
So
Or are you just thinking I'm just an absolute whack job?
a lot of it made sense. The curved blades, the gold and everything like that. Mbessa very much does not fit your normal Noxian flavor. And I believe I have not looked into it as much on the Noxus side, but I believe part of what's going on is I think the grand general commander, whoever of Noxus, has died or something like that. And there's a whole bunch of fighting going on among all the generals in a power vacuum, which might have something to do with the duel or this feud or whatever that Mbessa has with LeBlanc and the Black Rose, if LeBlanc is an advisor to the council and everything. So I don't know if there's a lot of that going on. It seems like in all of this, we are being kind of pointed towards, after this whole Piltover Zon stuff gets settled it seems like the next place they're really directing us to is what's going on with Noxus, for future media that they may go with. But my personal interest is not in Ambessa herself. I fancy myself a Kindred enjoyer.
Oh,
So
yes.
the whole thing with the lamb and wolf aspect of and the cinematic for Ambessa, and I had linked it back before the season started. I had watched it and was very, very interested in the lamb that young Ambessa is clutching, this lamb, this peaceful way of life, and something happens. Something happens. Somehow she finds herself on a battlefield dying, and has to give up the lamb, this peaceful way of life, and fight wolf in order to survive and in order to have the right to continue on. And how she kind of transforms from the lamb to the wolf herself, and that kind of directs where her actions and everything now are very much a follow-up of that past for her. So I was much more interested in the Kindred aspect. So
dude, first off, so now we're just primarily talking about the cinematic trailer, and like
which was released by the trailer itself was made by Fortiche, the people that make Arcane, as a lead up to Arcane, because Ambessa is coming. She's part of Arcane. She's part of League of Legends. So the cinematic was very much intended to be a primer for this season.
And it just gives you a little backstory of Ambessa. But Kindred, such a cool. So like for those unaware, I mentioned Kindred in episode 0. Kind of see a nod to Kindred with someone wearing a lamb mask and someone wearing a wolf mask in one of the.
There was also
scenes in the lanes.
In episode 1 where Kate is looking through the Kiramin key. She actually gets Lamb's face shadowed on her face while she's looking through so there was actually a little Easter egg of Lamb's face being shown on Kate's face in that episode.
That's awesome. I missed that. Kindred is like the aspect of death in Runeterra, or is it Valorant or Runeterra? What is the League world?
I think it's Runeterra.
So it's the lamb and the wolf. The lamb is the peaceful bringing of death, and the wolf is the aggressive bringing of death. And what they explain in what Necrit explains in the trailer breakdown is each society in the world views Kindred differently, right, based on their like religious beliefs. Some see the lamb, some in this case Noxus being an aggressive, like warring country, like it's more honorable for a Noxian to die like a violent, aggressive warrior's death. So in the cinematic trailer, Ambessa's laying on the beach with an arrow in her belly, right? And a wolf approaches her. That's Kindred death approaching her. And so she would see Kindred as a wolf. But the whole trailer, she's like fighting the wolf, fighting death for her life, right? The right to live. And in the trailer, it's really cool because the lamb is at the end of like the corridor. And when she doesn't even beat the wolf, she just like outlasts it.
She survives long enough to kind of be like, okay, I'm not going to take you. You deserve to fight on.
Yeah, she makes it to Kindred, and Kindred like gives her the little like wolf trinket or whatever, which is really really cool. But yeah, there's so much in that trailer. I know I watched it when you sent it, but I'm glad I watched the Necrit breakdown, because like I wouldn't have put any of this together.
I caught all the Kindred stuff when I watched it initially, and that's kind of how I watched it. I did not catch any of the other stuff about Shurima and Zareth and all of that kind of stuff. I had no idea what was going on there. I just thought, because one of the previous cinematics we got was actually Tryndamere having the same fight against Kindred. So I was just watching it through that lens. So, hey, more Kindred stuff.
Right. Yeah, it's really cool, man. Yeah, I would agree. The next direction for media content in the League universe seems to be pointing toward Noxus, and I would be totally cool with that, because it's a very story rich place and there's a lot you can do there. But maybe there's a fork in the road. I mean, Piltover is literally like in the middle between Noxus and Shurima, so they could go right or they could go left. They could go north or they could go south to. They go north to Noxus, south to Shurima.
It's almost like it's the center of the world. Almost. I mean, it's on a perfect shipping lane, and it's you've got the rest of the map all around it, so you can kind of go wherever you want from there. But.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't know. There's a little backstory of Ambessa's, lore, I guess, that we've been presented through various means, and a potential connection to Shurima. Maybe we see Zareth. That would be absolutely wild. Maybe we see LeBlanc. That would be absolutely wild. Maybe there's mention of Renekton, or maybe her blades are just a fun little nod to Renekton, and that's all it is. But yeah, post credit scene, another one, of course. It wouldn't be a season 2 episode if we didn't get a singed post credit scene, and it's finally revealed what we've been waiting for so long. Warwick suspended in Singed lab with his cool like chem tech tanks on his back and massive hulking werewolf body. And Singe kind of like transfusing his own blood into the creature. He's holding a little watch.
Why is he doing that?
He's got a little like locket thing. Oh. Yeah. He had it in season 1 as well. Yeah.
Why is he giving it his blood? Like, why was he doing that?
You would assume he's. I mean, you never really find out, but you assume he's completing the process of making this creature. Because he was doing all the stuff with the wolf blood and everything, and he was injecting different cells and mutating them and everything, and he had the wolf heart was hooked up, pumping blood out and everything. So you're assuming that he's doing something with his blood to bring this thing to life. But the implication is it's close. This is almost ready.
Tight.
Yeah, excited to see Warwick be unleashed in the streets of the lanes.
Are they in the lanes still?
And when it comes out,
we don't really know where. You never really know where he's doing it. You would assume it's in the lanes, but he seems to have kind of hidey spots all over.
Hidey spots, I like it.
Well, he's got the lab down the river that Victor found at, and
the Chris Farley lab, we'll call it.
Yeah,
down by the river.
Obviously, he had the lab in Silco's warehouse that he was working at, so he kind of bounces around a little bit.
Yeah, I just hope that it just has Vander's regular face. That's the only thing left we need to confirm. But yeah, I'm just saying, throwing this out there. Another wild speculation. Oriana is the clock reference. Maybe Oriana is another singed creation or a daughter, child, or something. I don't know. Anyways, that's it. Unless are we forgetting anything? Anything else we need to get off our chests? All right. Well, we'll see everyone back here next week. Breakdown episode 4. Don't forget, subscribe. We should have done this at the top, but also leave comments, guys, because unless your subscription settings on YouTube are turned on public, we cannot see that you're subscribing, so we cannot enter you in the giveaway. So we want to give these things away: Arcane Season 1 Blu-ray and 4K Steelbooks Vi and Jinx editions. Vi and Jinx editions. Subscribe, leave a comment. Take one of these homes. We're going to be doing the giveaway here in the finale. So we'll see you next week. Until then, have a good one. Bye.